Okay, so to recap where we have gone so far, I don't think I probably need to talk about feral children and nurture and nature again. I think I've gone through that enough. And I think you've probably heard me talk about norms, values, status and role and the nature of how they build into culture and the relationship between culture and society and socialization into norms, values and roles through social institutions. I think we're there. Now, the point about structure versus agency, structure sees this thing called culture, these norms and values, as relatively static. So the likes of functionalist, Marxist, and to some degree, feminists see these as a single thing, as culture as one thing. Functionalists see it's good that we have one thing that's culture that conforms us, and so that we have stability and that we are controlled, we are restrained in such a way as to stop greed, selfishness, and anarchy. Marxists kind of agree. They're saying this is one thing. There is one thing called culture. There is one thing called society. They call it a capitalist society, and they believe it's fundamentally unfair. They see that culture works for the benefit of the bourgeoisie or the rich rather than for each of us. But they see it as one thing, one overriding one thing. And this is where the link to methods come in. And also perhaps will explain when I go more into social action theory and postmodernism. These approaches are a bit like clock repairers or watch repairers. And if you open up the mechanics of a watch, you see how it works, you see how it fits together. If you can discover how the thing works and how it puts together, you can, if you're a functionalist, maintain it. If you're a Marxist, throw a spanner in those works and break it up. It's one thing. There is one key of explanation that explains the whole world. And what I'm drawing parallel towards is how the natural sciences work. Understandably, when you think of biology or chemistry, what you're looking at, or what they're looking at, I should say, is observable phenomena. In other words, you carefully look at a plant or an animal or what have you, and you observe the outside, the objective reality, the singular reality of that existence. And there is, understandably, in the natural world, an assumption that one rat who's being dissected will be the same as the next. And there are universal laws in nature that can be like this clock fixer or someone who takes the whole world as a symbol, as a mechanical object to break down, get in, understand. These guys, the functionalists, the Marxists, believe that there is a simple key, that there is a single event, there is one truth for our society, and there is one way in which we work. There is one thing, there is one society, there is one culture. And if you apply scientific principles, objective analysis, observable, quantifiable methods of measuring the world, it will reveal its truth. It will give you a picture of this singular reality. So they are what structuralists, another word for structuralists is positivists. Positivists are also a description all the natural sciences that work on the scientific methods, look at observable phenomena that quantify, measure, and analyze in that way. So this is the structural side of things. Now, agency, when I say, and I'm kind of referring partly to here the social action theorists, agency doesn't sound like it's a major step away from structure, in that all that it is saying is these are not fixed, that culture does not operate of a kind of external to us, imposed on us way. It doesn't operate the same way in every circumstance. Its operation is mediated through the interpretation of culture by the individual's experience and interaction with others. Now, if I can break that down, what it means, and hopefully the video that I've asked you to watch on symbolic interactionism is good at explaining this. It means that meanings differ in every social situations. And if you like, norms and values differ in different situations. I'm fond of saying that a value of British society is politeness, and that the norm of British society is queuing, because it is a form of politeness. What social action theory or agency would look at here is that universal truth is not a universal truth. It is notable that when I queue up for catch a bus outside the college, for instance, outside Tiverton High School, there are no queues. So in the exception where teenagers rule the roost, there is no queuing. My wife is Scottish, and when I go to Scotland and when I catch a bus in Scotland, their interpretation of the queuing system is somewhat different. It is somewhat nuanced. It is, I have stood in a queue in Scotland where half the queue will stand aside as a bus comes in because it's not their bus. So they are so conformist, they've interpreted it and taking it to a different place. Now, I used to live in Brixton, a place in South London, where queuing did not happen ever. So if we're saying queuing as a phenomenon changes according to the social situation and how it is interpreted in each, what you're pointing at is a diversity of meaning, a diversity of norms, values, socials, and roles. And the point, social action theory, when it talks about negotiation, is that it overturns the apple cart of this idea of a single culture, this idea of one thing. Because if each time people come together, and because we bring our personal experience to it, we modify, we change norms, values, status, and role, you cannot say that a universal form of explanation will fit. There is no one culture, there is no one truth, there's just a multiplicity of truths. Instead of universalism, we talk about diversity and difference. And they say that to look at how this works, to apply a method of science does not work, because you're not measuring one thing. You cannot apply what you find out from the measurement of one situation to any other. These sides, the agency theories, are ones that deny science, and that in particular the applicability of scientific principles to the measurement of society. They think it's more important to talk about what goes inside people's heads than to observe action or reaction as though it was uniform and the same in every situation. So theirs is not quantity quantifiable methods, it looks at quality methods, and it looks to measure what people think, what happens internally. It's a very different approach to it, but it's about diversity. Postmodernism, and a couple of you had an issue or two with postmodernism yesterday. I'm not surprised. It's a very complex area. And what I would ask you to bear in mind is that this is a ladybird skip the surface type approach. So don't worry about the fact that there seems a lot that needs explaining. But if I can put it to you in this way, postmodernism takes this agency idea of denying the objective single reality of culture and society. It takes it to a further element. It calls this approach modernism. It says this approach has died, it has collapsed. It criticizes this approach for offering a meta-narrative, a single answer response. It denies that there is a key to opening up universal laws of understanding when it comes to the social world. It says that is rubbish. It actually says science is rubbish. So the meta-narrative is a way of criticizing what we're talking about in terms of culture and the idea of a single culture or a single British culture. Postmodernism would say there are cultures, there are truths, there is not a single truth. And this has been exposed by the advent of the internet, the information superhighway. We are now absolutely swamped with different versions of reality. We can tap into, on a global basis, the multiplicity of ways in which the world is viewed, the social world and everything else. And what they're saying is this is just blown away overnight, this idea of one thing. It's lots of things. Globalization, as you can see, so the fact that we are now connected, which again is to do with the information superhighway and also to do with travel, it also has this idea, doesn't it? It says that there's so many truths now. You can no longer talk about single truth. And so these approaches are interpretivist as opposed to positivist. The positivist or structuralist approach talks about quantifying quant methods of research, which are about observation and objectivity. The agency look at qualitative rather than quantitative methods of research, which are about measuring what people actually think, which is about asking people in depth and recording the way they see the world in the words that they use to describe it, yeah, to get to meaning, right? So this is a way of looking at the two. Okay, I hope that has helped you.